The Bradford Lee Gilbert Dundas Castle, one of 75 New York castles located on a mountaintop near Beaverkill, Roscoe, New York, was probably the only New York castle that has never been occupied for a long period of time. This castle, with its Italian imported marble and its Scottish imported roof slates, holds many deep secrets that range from secret society cults, Masonic rituals, family members committed to mental asylums that experimented on humans, and even death. The castle is known as the Craig-E-Clair Castle. It is the name that comes from a small town by the name of Craig-E-Clare in Scotland. The home was built between 1915 and 1924 and was supposedly modeled after a 15th century castle in Scotland near and located in Edinburgh. Scotland is also the country that the Knights Templar, which later became Freemasons, escaped their deaths from the French King Philip IV because they created the first banking system that was going to control the world. These Knights of Templar, which are today's Freemasons, spent 400 years in Scotland hiding and creating their grand plan for the New World Order. You will not read about this in your children's altered and modified school history books, which are written by a small group of scholars who scrub history clean of unpleasant truths, indoctrinate their agenda, and have it published by a Rockefeller publishing company who own and continue to control most of the public school and college textbook publishing companies in America. What is not in our kids' history books is that America was founded and built by the Scottish Rite, which were the 33-degree Masons, which included most of the American founding fathers. This secret society still controls America today and the world. You sometimes have to wonder why certain people become judges, U.S. presidents, big corporate CEOs, and other important elite. These Masons never get punished for their crimes and rarely get sentenced to prison for their crimes because many of the judges are 33-degree Masons. Many of the older U.S. federal judges, past presidents, corporate CEOs were all 33-degree Masons. When you fly over Washington, D.C. and other cities like Sandusky, Ohio, you can see the Masonic Luciferin symbology woven into the buildings, streets, castles built by Masonic architects. Originally, this Dundas Castle plot of land had a summer lodge, and back in those days, many lodges were Masonic, which were frequently visited by Freemasons who performed usually Masonic rituals. These secret societies have been known on certain days of the year, like Halloween or Walpurgissnacht, to hold satanic Luciferin rituals from their Luciferin calendars. In 1988, mustache talk show gadfly Geraldo Rivera aired a very special 2-hour episode on Satanism, which brought NBC the highest ratings, except for the fact that they lost $500,000 in advertising revenues from corporations, which had company executive board of directors and major stockholders being 33-degree Masons. The Geraldo show had many whistleblowers like FBI Chief Ted Gunderson, who broke the story of the CIA Finders, a child abduction operation which involved 33-degree Masons, and Ted ended up dead from arsenic poisoning. Geraldo and NBC 1988 show never mentioned anything about the CIA MK Ultra mind control project, 33-degree Masons, the corporate CEOs, Washington's politics involving in child rape, child abuse, prostitution, and human sacrifice for blood drinking rituals. Just like in the Geraldo Rivera show, children have been known to disappear from orphanages from this area and all over the country and used for the secret cult, which included but not limited to politicians, Masons, presidents, CIA, FBI, and used in prostitution, sex, torture, all of which included Luciferin rituals, which could consist of chanting, blood drinking, torturing, raping, and even sacrificing. These elitists do this to enhance more power for themselves and increase their longevity. These illuminated ones will get special treatment, just like the 101-year-old David Rockefeller, who just recently received his 7th heart transplant during the summer of 2016. Think about that for a minute. 7 people died for this illuminated one to get to live. This secret society believes in self-indulgence, spiritualism, magic, astrology, satanic doctrine, mind control, blood drinking, and human sacrifice, which supposedly increases their longevity. Some of these abducted, kidnapped, and donated babies and children are severely tortured to increase their blood endorphin levels. These illuminated ones then drain the blood and drink it to get a super endorphin rush, which they claim increases their life longevity. This happens all over the world. Even in the Anna Marie Van Blankenburg's testimony, she testified in great detail about blood murders in Belgium. She even went as far as mentioning about the audience participation of Prince John of Frisco, his psychiatrist Gus Perot, Demont, Heer Donner, a former minister Mark Rutte, president of the Netherlands, and even possibly the social engineer George Soros. It has been rumored and documented in history books that the Dundas Castle had 3 small ponds in the shape of hearts, and during a full moon, one of the ponds became red and appeared to be full of blood. This may have not been a rumor after all. The story gets crazier. In 1915, the New York architect Bradford Lee Gilbert was employed by Ralph Wurts-Dundas to build his castle. The famous architect was a driving force in the growing railroad industry and was also associated with a secret society that had names like James Hill, J. and George Gould, Cornelius Vanderbilt, Edward Harriman, Collis P. Huntington, Rockefeller, Morgan, and a few more Illuminati members. Bradford Lee Gilbert, the architect, was also famous for building the Tower Building, which was New York City's first skyscraper in 1888. This 12-story skyscraper was mysteriously torn down in 1914 because of a mysterious financial reason. While building the castle, RDundas's his wife and child would visit the castle construction site frequently to observe its construction. The castle was never finished, and the Dundas family never moved in because in 1921 RDundas died, or may have even been murdered. We will never know. What is interesting was right after his death, several doctors who had some interest in the Dundas fortune committed his late wife, Muriel Harmer Wurts-Dundas, to a mental institution, which at that time had no national standards for psychiatric care. Back in those days, they basically restrained patients for days and weeks at a time. Many cases of rape, sexual molestation, rape beatings were not uncommon and still go on today. Even today, psychiatrists and psychologists are the number 1 sex abusers and women and child rapers in this country. These doctors have made up a profession that virtually has no scientific justification. They rape children, they rape women who are drugged or restrained, and then they go home and have dinner with their families like nothing ever happened. Later in the 1950s, psychiatric institutions experimented with LSD, electroshock, sleep deprivation, CIA mind control, and even conducted over 80,000 known lobotomies. Of one was done to John F. Kennedy's sister, Rosemary Kennedy, because she was slightly promiscuous, and her father, Joseph P. Kennedy, was afraid she might blemish the Kennedy name. While the late Dundas was living the rest of her life institutionalized, her only daughter, Muriel, was being raised by nannies and caretakers, which at that time, she was worth $40 million. The $40 million Dundas fortune slowly depleted. It makes you wonder, a dead millionaire, a committed wife from a potential fake diagnosis of a mental illness, and a child that had a $40 million fortune that had magical powers of disappearing. After the only child, Muriel, being basically robbed blind, her mental stability was also questioned, most probably to shut her up, and she too was committed and placed in a sanatorium in England on May the 2nd, 1949. After this long chain of events, the castle was purchased by Prince Hall Grand Lodge of the Masonic Order for $47,500, and the Masonic rituals most probably continue. Today, the castle continues to sit empty on top of a mountain in Roscoe, New York.